Fashion is not something that exists in dresses only. Fashion is in the sky, in the street. Fashion has to do with ideas, the way we live, what is happening. Coco Chanel.
Flappers. Fashion forging for women against the societal norms of the 1920s. By Abby Forbes, Cienna McNamara, and Maggie Meyer.
The Roaring Twenties was a period of significant social, economic, and political change in America. The decade marked a time of prosperity and growth following the end of World War I, and it was characterized by a variety of cultural and societal shifts. Women gained the right to vote in 1920 with the passage of the 19th Amendment, and this led to greater participation by women in politics and public life. Prohibition and the ban on the production, sale, and transportation of alcohol was also enacted during this time, leading to a rise in organized crime and a general disregard for the law.
Flappers were a symbol of the changing social norms and attitudes of the 1920s. They challenged the traditional gender roles and expectations of women and were seen as rebellious and free-spirited. The flapper lifestyle represented a desire for independence and a rejection of the strict moral codes of the past. In addition to their fashion choices, flappers also engaged in behaviors that were considered scandalous at the time. They drank alcohol, smoked cigarettes, and openly discussed sex. They frequented dance clubs and speakeasies, where they danced the Charleston and other popular dances of the era. Despite the controversy and disapproval they faced, flappers continued to push the boundaries of societal expectations throughout the 1920s. Their influence on fashion, music, and popular culture would continue to be felt for decades to come.
Before the flapper era, women's fashion was highly restrictive and focused on modesty. Dresses were often long and voluminous with high necklines and long sleeves. Corsets were a standard undergarment used to create an hourglass figure and emphasize a small waist. It wasn't until the 1920s, with the rise of the flapper style, that women's fashion became more daring and free-flowing. The shift in fashion reflected a larger cultural shift towards individualism.
Certain nicknames given to young girls in the 1920s, such as backfish, la garçon, and flapper, all had a condescending tone to them, suggesting that these young women had not yet fully grown into mature adults. These terms were used to describe their perceived immaturity, recklessness, and lack of adherence to traditional gender roles. However, despite the negative connotations, the flapper subculture of the 1920s played a significant role in challenging traditional gender norms and paving the way for greater societal and political freedoms for women in the decades to come.
Coco Chanel was an influential designer for modernist women in the 1920s. Chanel's designs for women were revolutionary in the 1920s, as she introduced looser, more comfortable clothing that challenged the traditional ideas of femininity and beauty. Her use of simple, classic designs and high-quality materials helped to popularize a new standard of understated elegance that remains influential in fashion today. The little black dress, which Chanel designed in the 1920s, is now considered a timeless classic that every woman should have in her wardrobe. Elegance is not the prerogative of those who have just escaped from adolescence, but of those who have already taken possession of their future. Coco Chanel.
Colleen Moore was a popular actress during the silent film era and was known for her role as a flapper in the film Flaming Youth. Her portrayal of a carefree, pleasure-seeking young woman resonated with audiences of the time and helped solidify the image of the flapper in popular culture. Moore's decision to cut her hair into a bob was a bold move at the time, as long hair was seen as a symbol of femininity and beauty. However, the hairstyle became an iconic symbol of the flapper era and helped cement Moore's image as a trendsetter and fashion icon. I've always believed in manicures and dressing well. I was always a bit of a clothes horse. I believe in overdressing. I'm not the type who will stay in the house without lipstick. I'll put earrings on. Colleen Moore. This quote reflects Moore's love of fashion and style, as well as her belief in the importance of presenting oneself well. She was known for her glamorous on-screen image and her personal lifestyle. This quote captures her philosophy on the role of fashion and beauty in one's life.
Clara Bow was a famous actress in the 1920s and was known as the It Girl due to her role in the 1927 film It, which popularized the term It to describe a person's magnetic and attractive qualities. She was a quintessential flapper, and her on-screen persona exuded youth, vitality, and effortless charm, making her a beloved figure of the era. Bow's natural charisma and vivacity made her a popular star, and her appeal transcended gender boundaries. Women were inspired by her independent spirit and fashionable style, while men were drawn to her beauty and vivaciousness. She was a cultural icon of the 1920s and helped to popularize the flapper image and lifestyle. I'm not a goddess, I'm a woman, and I prefer that. Clara Bow. This quote reflects Bo's down-to-earth personality and her desire to be seen as a real person rather than an unattainable ideal.
Mary Louise Brooks, also known as Louise Brooks, was a Hollywood actress and dancer who became a cultural icon of the jazz age. She is often remembered for her striking bobbed hair, which became an iconic symbol of the flapper era. Brooks began her career as a dancer and chorus girl and eventually signed a contract with Paramount Pictures in the late 1920s. She quickly became known for her unique on-screen presence, which combined innocence with eroticism, and her rebellious temperament. Her performances in films such as Pandora's Box and Diary of a Lost Girl have been praised for their complexity and depth. Despite her success, Brooks had a tumultuous personal life and struggled with addiction and mental health issues. She retired from acting in the 1930s and spent many years in obscurity before experiencing a resurgence of interest in her work in the 1950s and 60s. Today, she is remembered as a pioneering actress who helped to define the flapper image and lifestyle. I have a gift for enraging people, but if I ever bore you, it will be with a knife. Mary Louise Brooks. This quote reflects her rebellious spirit and her willingness to challenge societal norms and expectations, even if it meant facing criticism or backlash from others. Brooks was known for her sharp wit and her unconventional approach to life and art, and this quote is a testament to her unique personality and perspective.
The flapper movement of the 1920s was a cultural phenomenon that challenged traditional gender roles and advocated for greater freedom and equality for women. Flappers like Colleen Moore, Clara Bow, and Mary Louise Brooks embraced a new sense of independence and individuality that was both liberating and empowering for women. Through their fashion, behavior, and attitudes, flappers rejected traditional notions of femininity and instead embraced a more modern, progressive identity. They wore shorter dresses, bobbed their hair, and danced to jazz music in public. They also pursued careers and social activities that were previously considered inappropriate or scandalous for women. Despite facing criticism and backlash from some segments of society, flappers played an important role in advancing the cause of women's liberation and equality. They helped to inspire a shift in societal norms that paved the way for greater opportunities and freedoms for women in the decades that followed.
The flapper movement of the 1920s was a defining moment in American history, as it represented a significant shift in societal norms and attitudes towards women. Flappers were young women who embraced a new sense of freedom and individuality and challenged traditional gender roles and expectations. Flappers were known for their lively spirit, their daring fashion choices, and their embrace of new forms of entertainment and social activities. They rejected traditional notions of femininity and instead embraced a more modern, progressive identity that was both liberating and empowering. Through their actions, flappers pushed barriers in politic, economic, and sexual freedom, paving the way for future generations of women to pursue their dreams and ambitions without fear of judgment or discrimination. While the flapper era was short-lived, its impact on the American culture and society was profound, and it continues to inspire and influence generations of women to this day.